Okay, once we go over this, I want you to put two circles. One for what was your raw score out of 9. The other one is what was your potential score, meaning did you have any aha moments? And I'm hoping there's a lot of aha moments here. All right, Lawrence, let's read the scenario number 4 in part A.
The function f satisfies f of 0 equals 20. The first derivative of f satisfies the inequality 0 less than or equal to f prime of x is less than or equal to 7 for all x in the post-interval 0, 6. Selected values of f prime are shown in the table above. The function f has a continuous second derivative for all real numbers. Use a midpoint Riemann sum with 3 subintervals of equal length indicated by the data in the table to approximate the value of f of 6.
All right, I want you to underline on part A approximated value versus on part B the actual value. When we get to the actual value, we're going to integrate by hand. And when we get to the approximated, we're doing the Riemann sums. Now keep in mind, Riemann sum is pretty much an approximated value of the area under the curve. So in this case, let's underline we're looking at midpoint. And I want 3 subintervals. So that means I'm going to go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and 4 to 6, and I have 3 chunks. And we're using the midpoint Riemann sum. So it's asking us to find f of 6. And if I were to look at my flashcard that I have, I'm gonna use this flashcard number 6B. And let's actually write this on the top somewhere. So if I write on here, we have the integral from A to B. We're looking at it from 0 to 6 of f prime of x. I'm simply copying what's on the flashcard. And that's going to give us f of 6 minus f of 0. And what's nice about the f of 0, didn't they already give us the value of f of 0? Y'all see that? 20? So I'm going to write 20 right here. Before I do 20, I should have done something. That was silly on my end. Since we're looking for f of 6, let's go ahead and move everybody over except f of 6. So I'm going to leave f of 6 right over here. And I'm going to let f of 0 join on the other side. And the way I'm going to write out is f of 0 plus, and this is simply applying algebra. This right here is going to be the Riemann sum. So let's go ahead and write on here. We have, that's going to be 20 for f of 0 plus, let's apply the Riemann sum somewhere on the top. Okay, if I cover all this, what's my middle value? Is it 4, 3.5, or 2? What's our middle value? 3.5, so I'm going to write it over here. 3.5. And the difference between 1 and 2 is how many? 2? Okay, what's the middle number on my second subinterval? 0.8. And then between 2 to 4? 2. And my next middle value is what? 5.8. And again, it happens to be consistent as 2 as our difference. And let's actually solve for this. 3.5 double is how many? 7, very good. And if I take 0.8 times 2, would you agree we have, is it 11.6 or 1.6? 1.6? Oh, that one's 11.6. Would you agree on that? Okay. 11.6. And that's going to give us 7, 8. 8 plus that is going to give me about 19. Add 1.2 again. Do y'all get 20.2? Yes. Okay. So let's plug that in for this guy over here. So plus 20.2. And that value is going to be what? 40.2. Y'all good on that? Okay? Now, I do like to say when you have some empty space, write that in a sentence, okay? Because if at all possible, the more you fill in, the better it is. So I would say the approximated value of f of 6. Always use their sentence stem. The approximated value of f of 6 is 40.2. Now, because they didn't ask us to explain it, they're not going to take off if you don't write the last sentence. But it's always good to write more than you need. Because really, in the end, if it's not there, and they choose to give you credit for that piece, they can choose not to, right? So the breakdown for this one. Using the midpoint Riemann sums and getting to 20.2 is 1 point. And they want to see all the work, okay? And then the next one is going to be using flashcard number 6B is going to be another point. And your final answer is going to be another point. Okay, y'all good on that? So go ahead and write on there how many was your raw and potential, but not on the circle. That's for the final. So let's go on to the next piece. Andrew, let's read part B.
Determine whether the actual value of F6 could be 70. Explain your reasoning.
Okay, the explain your reasoning, we have to write that in sentence. Part A, we really didn't have to, but we did just because why not? Okay, so for the actual value, I am going to steal what I made f of 6 by itself. Let's copy that. Because the previous one, I did a midpoint Riemann sum with the approximation. We're going to actually integrate by hand on this one. And then we're looking at the value of 6 dx. So let's keep what I already know. What was f of 0 from part A that I can't change? 20. So if I'm finding the actual value on this one, and let's kind of think about what the value of this one right here is on our chart. It says when x equals 6, f prime of 6 is how many? 7. So I'm just going to plug that in. Integral from 0 to 6 of 7 dx. And I'm going to mainly worry about this guy right here. When I integrate 7, isn't that 7x? From 6 to 0. And when I plug this in, using our substitution, that's going to give us 7 times 6, which is 42. 7 times 0 is how many? 0. So that's going to give me 42. So when I plug everything in, 20 from the original, 42, and that's going to give us how many? 62. Now it's asking us, can it be 70? What is the answer, yes or no? No. And I want you to always use their sentence stem. Except instead of could be, I'm going to add in could not be.
Yeah, but that would be really stupid. At the bottom you have 20 plus 42 equals 64.
Did I write 64? It should be how many?
62?
62. That was silly on my end. Thank you for catching that. I wonder if I said the word 62 or 64. I don't know. Okay, let's use our sentence stem. The actual value of f of 6 cannot be 70 because 62 is not equivalent to 70. And our point system. Get into 60 or 42 by using the actual value as in integrating. It's going to give you 1 point. And then the explanation, because they said explain, has to be in sentence, 1 point. So go ahead and tally your potential and raw score for that section B. Okay, if you're ready, let's go on to the next page. The next page is a little bit disguised. All right, so I need y'all to look at the board real quick. Y'all ready? So I have no prime, so I have 1 prime. Do we see that? So if I have 1 prime here, how many primes do I need on this side? 2. So it's either none and 1 or 1 and 2. And if you notice, how many primes do I have here? 2. So let's go ahead and mimic the formula on this one. We have the integral from 2 to 4 of f double prime of x dx is equal to, I'm going to mimic the formula, f prime of 4 minus f prime of 2. Having that alone, this right here, and knowing how to use flashcard number 6B is going to give you 1 point. The next piece is simply a substitution. If you look at the given, then they give us f of 4, or f prime of 4 is 1.7. And they also gave us, when x equals 2, f prime of 2 is what? 2. So we're simply plugging it in. So we have 1.7 was f prime of 4 from the table, minus f prime of 2 from the table was 2. And that answer is negative 0.3. So our point system on this one, we already know the flashcard was 1. And then get into the answer is another point. So quick question. What if you wrote 1.7 minus 2? On the FRQ, can you get the full 1 point on that one? Yeah, you can. As long as you plug everything in and not simplify, you can get credit for it. So if you're like, I'm having a little brain fart, and you choose to not to get negative 0.3, it is okay. Okay, go ahead and tally raw and potential real quick. And let's go on to part D. Okay, on part D, when we're looking for limit, the first thing that we always do is do what to our value? What am I plugging in? It says it's approaching what number? 0. Let's plug it in. So I'm going to write on here limit. And I'm going to plug it in top independent from the bottom, because it could be 0 over 0. So f of 0 minus 20 to the power of e to the power of 0. It was given that f of 0 was how many, guys? 20. And e to the power of 0 is 1. 1 times 20 is simply minus 20. That's 0. Now let's plug in the bottom. On the bottom, we're doing that independently. 0.5 of f of x. Oh, f of 0. Silly me. Minus 10. And we know this right here is 20. Half of 20 is how many? So 10 minus 10 is 0. So AP graders want to see it independently, that it's 0 over 0, but not in a fractional form. And now we can use the following part. Y'all remember when we had indeterminate back in unit 2 or 3, we used the rule called L'Hopital's rule? If you remember, give me a nod. Okay? If you don't remember, here's a reminder for you. So L'Hopital's rule states, as long as 0 over 0, you may derive the top independently, derive the bottom independently, but the limit notation has to follow. Oh, that's an arrow. So derivative of f of x, isn't that f prime of x? Are we good on that one? Derivative of anything with the e is itself times the derivative of the power. What is the derivative of that 1x? 1. Yeah, so I'm not going to write the 1 because it's not really needed. And on the bottom, we have 0.5 f prime of x. And we know the derivative of the constant negative 10 is 0, so I'm not going to write that on there. Now let's plug it in. So this is going to give me f prime of 0 minus 20 e to the power of 0 all over 0.5 f prime of 0. Okay, look at your chart. Okay, Abby, tell me on your chart at the beginning, when x equals 0, f prime is equal to how many?
4.
Okay, 4, very good. And then the next piece is going to give me minus 20. So if I have 4 again, 4 and half of 4 is how many? 2. And let's further simplify. That's negative 16 over 2, which ends up being how many? Negative 8. So then, this one did not say explain. If you want to write on there, the limit blah is negative 8, go for it, if time allows, but you don't have to. So here's our point system. Using L'Hopital's rule correctly and deriving it, that's 1 point. And getting to negative 8 is another point. But let's talk about where I can stop. Do I have to get to negative 8? You don't have to. Do I have to get to negative 16 over 2? Nope. You could stop right here. As long as you plugged everything, you could stop right there. And instead of 2 on the bottom, if you wrote 0.5 times 4, that is also okay. So let's make sure that we have all the point system. So A had 3 points, B had 2, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, perfect. Go ahead and write your raw score and potential score. And let's add that to the front of your packet as well.